Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. My name is Didier. I'm the co-founder and CEO of OpenBB. Here from our team, you have James, co-founder and CEO of OpenBB. You have Michael, our head of AI, which are going to be the two panelists with me today. And I'm going to introduce that in a second. Then you also have Rita coordinating everything. She's our marketing person. And then we have Ming, which is our head of product, that is going to be on the Q&A session, answering any type of questions. But then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session anyway. So if you want any live responses, you can wait for the end if you want to ask. But let's get started. I'm going to start sharing my screen. So again, hi everyone. The structure of this presentation is going to be me giving a brief introduction of what is OpenBB, how we started, what's our vision. Then we're gonna have Michael talking about everything we've done on AI side for the past year and how that ties into open source and people bringing their own copilots and agents, which is going to be super exciting. So that's going to be one of the biggest chunks of the presentation. And then in the end, James is going to do another of the biggest chunks of the presentation around bringing your own data into the product, into the terminal, and also connecting with the open source. And so those are going to be the main points of the presentation. I'm going to just introduce a bit and yeah, it should be a fun event. And at the end is going to be a Q&A. So feel free to ask questions in the end or during the presentation where we have people from the team ready to answer. And so to get started, let me go back almost 4 years ago now when I started GameStone terminal at the time. I started it in my living room in London while I had a job as a software engineer. I think my actual boss is actually an attendant on this call, my boss from like 4 years ago. So hi, Yusuf. And I started it on my spare time because I was starting to get into investment research. I was doing my own research and analysis and investing money. And as an engineer, I felt that the entire process of doing research was really fragmented and broken. I was spending so much time doing research. I had like all of these dashboards open. If I looked for a different ticker, I would have to go into all of these, update the ticker, take a screenshot, put in a document, write some notes. I mean, this was before large language models were a thing, right? And so I really hated all the time that was being spent on that process. And the more I was learning, the more time it was consuming me. And so at some point I was spending the entire weekend doing research and I was like, okay, there must be a better way. And so I started building this Python based command line interface where I was aggregating all of the data into a product and then being able to create a pipeline of commands to have access to that data. That's kind of how GameStonk terminal started. And the name was because Elon Musk tweeted about GameStonk and during GameStop time. And so yeah, and then OpenBB, the name is because of BlackBerry. Both James and I were losing money on BlackBerry. And so when we had to incorporate, because we raised some money, we decided on the naming of OpenBB. And so you can see here some articles when I made the product open source. After 2 months of working on it for my own use case, we went viral on Hacker News, on Reddit. Vice Magazine did a post on us calling us the meme stock version of Bloomberg, which was quite fun at the time. And they characterized it as a terminal to just do research on GameStop, which was actually not true, which was funny. And since then, we come a long way. We ended up raising almost 9 million on a seed round from top investors like OSS Capital, but also big angels like Naval Ravikant, Elad Gil, Ram Shriram, and a few others. And actually, 2 days ago, we were featured on TechCrunch, which was a really good article from TechCrunch. And then we also got #1 on Product Hunt. And if you're on this call, I'm sure that you've seen all that we've posted on the social medias around Product Hunt. And thank you for your support. It means the world. And so during these 3 years, I want to highlight like the community that we've built. Today, OpenBB or GitHub open source project is the #1 on the finance category on GitHub by number of stars, which is just incredible. We have like more than 32,000 stars, 220 contributors, and is a really active repository. And honestly, this open source project is what enabled us to raise money and to be where we are today. But apart from that, it's not just about developers, it's also about the community in general that we've built. We have over 57,000 registered users that have used OpenBB products and signed up to our products. Our bot commands have been run over 4 million times. Our installer, when we added for the command line interface, had been downloaded 150,000 times. We have thousands of followers across all of our socials. We have a big community on Discord where people chat often, asking questions, asking for support. And so we built all of this community, and the products that were accessible to them was everything except the product that we're talking now, right? So you had the open source, you had the bot, you had the open source platform, sorry, the Python API, and you had the bot, you had the command line interface, and then this terminal. We started a bit backwards, where we wanted to really focus on enterprise to make sure that the product was mature enough so that we could enable more people then to use it over time. And so that's where we are today, where we created this new free tier where everyone as an individual can start utilizing it and see what we believe to be the vision of doing investment research in the future. And so our goal with this is like, look, if you're an individual, you can start using our product, you can bring your own data, you can bring your own copilot. Everything is available from that perspective. And if you are working professionally, like as doing research on a hedge fund, family offices, and you want to bring OpenBB to your company, then it starts to make sense to reach out to us to discuss like an enterprise where you have more enterprise features. And so for us, it's always been about like, okay, how can we add the most value to the community? And as long as we can retain some of them, that's perfect, because we can build like a big product and community around it. And as I'm going to share in a second, pretty much everything around our product today is open source, and we try to open source as much as we can because we strongly believe that this is the best way to build software. There's more eyeballs, there's more ideas, there's more collaboration, is better in all the sense. And if companies can make a sustainable business value out of it, I don't think there's a better way to build like a successful business. But that's my personal take. So this is where we are today. This is what the terminal looks like. This has been 2 years in the work, and by 2 years in the works, I mean 2 years ago there was like an empty repository that we started, and it was literally empty. We started from the scratch. So this has been the result of thousands of hours poured into the team, hundreds of discussions with professionals, hundreds of iterations, design changes, and so a lot of hard work. And we're finally putting it out there for everyone to use. You can see on the right side, that's our AI Copilot window that we've been working on OpenBB Copilot for 1 year. So Michael will talk a lot about that. And OpenBB Copilot is basically an AI agent that works by your side while you are doing research. And so we have this belief that I think is a bit not where the industry is today. I think that today a lot of other products out there are betting on the chat-based form to do research. We don't really believe in that as a long-term form of doing research. We believe there are use cases where chat-based is the right format to do research. And for instance, you'll see that if you use our progressive web app on your mobile, you'll see that the AI agent has a more important like protagonist, like a more important role when you use the product, because on the phone, chatting interface is a more natural form of interaction. But when you are sit on your desktop, we believe that a desktop-based form is the best. And so we try to have the agent being able to understand your intents and control what you want to do next, and help you doing research, summarizing documents, bringing the right widgets for to your dashboard based on past things that you've done. And so that's kind of what we've been building, and this is why we're calling it an AI-powered research workspace. It's AI powered, which I think that in a few years no one is going to use AI powered anymore. But for now, I think is important to have. Is a research, because it can do anything from research, investor relations. It can do equity, crypto, any type of data, shipping data, anything you can do research with. And then is a workspace because of the flexibility that we give users. And I really think that what we're building, when we saw this term called AI compound systems by Berkeley University, it was shared by someone on our team, and we were immediately like, okay, this is what we're building. We didn't know it before. There wasn't like a term, but it's this AI agent Copilot on the side that has been integrated so well into the product that it works like on top of it. So it's not like, you have to think that we were building this product from scratch. And so when ChatGPT came out and we started building Copilot, we literally made decisions at the product level that would make the AI Copilot features better. So it's not an afterthought and not going backwards. And I think that's the right way to do things. And so why are we here today? And I think that this is a really important like insight that personally I believe Humans are producing more data than ever before, yet the human capability to process, analyze that data has remained the same. So there's this massive gap of alpha that is being created because people are not able to analyze enough information. Like one of the best use cases that I like to show people when I do a demo of the terminal is I ask, for instance, how long would it take you to compare two earnings transcripts from companies? And as a human, you need to read one, take some notes, you need to read the other, take some notes, you need to compare topics and analyze. Turns out that large language models are extremely good at doing this. And now you can think that as models get like better and even cheaper, faster, imagine the amount of data sets that you're going to be able to use to extract like insights, to get like trends, to get like patterns. And so we're building this interface for users to do research and be able to take the most advantage of the full capability of LLMs. And I think that the agent form factor is going to be the key player here, because unlike a pure LLM play, agents can have can use like external feedback to make decisions, and so it can like it's almost like is like a cycle where basically and you'll see that when Michael and James show the product, but our Copilot can output text or a table that becomes a widget on an interface that then it can be reutilized later. And then, for instance, if you are on an enterprise context, you can share that with the team, and the team has a different agent that can work on top of that. And so it just gets better. And over time, we believe that AI is gonna enhance like the human capability, and everyone will have their own personal like AI assistants that understands their intents, understand how they think about things, and it's just an extension of who you are. And so we're building towards that. And so this is what our product like ecosystem around the terminal looks like today. The terminal is what we are going to show you today, is where I am actually right now. So if I do this, you can see the Copilot here, and here you can see the tab, but right now I'm in the presentation mode. And then there's these like two areas that I like to call. On the right side, you have the AI capabilities. You have here the Copilot. You have all of these logic here that enables users to bring their own Copilots and large language models. Think if you have something like doing RAG internally or fine-tuned, you are able to bring that into the product. And all of that has been open source. So we allow users to bring like any type of Copilot that they want, and we make that logic open so people can really experiment and bring any large language model they want. And then on the other side, we enable users to bring any type of data, whether it's structured, unstructured file, whether it's an API endpoint, whether it's a website, whether it's a custom backend, which actually James is going to show how we were able to wrap the entire OpenBB platform. We're talking about 370 different data sets. We wrapped all of that, and we enabled that being used as data to use within the OpenBB terminal, which is like just mind-blowing. Like the first time I tried it and I saw 370 widgets successfully added to the terminal, I was like, holy, like this is wild. And you can connect like databases like Snowflake, SQL, Databricks, MindDB, ClickHouse, anything you want into the product. And that component, that data layer, has also been made open source, so you have full flexibility to bring any type of data. And so one thing that we did recently with a customer was we integrated their Gmail. So we built like an extension that enabled their Gmail, and we also built a custom Copilot with them to analyze data from Gmail. And so it shows the flexibility that our product and the entire ecosystem enables users. And finally, some demo time. So I'm just gonna show you quickly how the terminal looks, and then Michael is gonna take over. But basically, you have this concept of like dashboards here on the side. And if I click on a new dashboard, this is fully empty. I'm gonna add a template, and a template shows you what your dashboard can look like when you actually have all the data that you want in place. So you can resize things, you can delete them. If you prefer light mode, you can change to light mode. All of these tabs here on top, you have control over them. So if there's anything that you don't want, you can remove. It. You can also add it. You have full control over that. You can even create charts from raw data directly here. We are also working on an analytics module on top of the widgets. And one of the first analytics modules that we added was actually from a company called Nixla that enables to do forecasting. And so this is a really cool way to forecast revenue like quickly from a company. And then all of these, again, is all customizable. If you don't want some of them, you can remove them. All of these widgets here you can see are grouped together, which means that if I update to, let's say, Disney, you'll see all of the data gets updated. And you see here on the side, what is the ticker that you are using as a reference. This is the tab that I created empty. So if I want to add like a widget, I can do, I don't know, let's look for an earnings transcript. And then maybe I want to add a note widget. You'll see that the earnings is going to be shared here. And then you'll see it from Michael's demo that it integrates really well with the AI Copilot. So for instance, if I want to add into context, I can add it here, but the Copilot by default has access to this data. So it can say that, okay, based on the question that the user asks, I'm going to use these widgets or these data that is on the back end. And then the note, you can add anything you want. Hello to everyone. And then finally here on the side, what you'll be able to see is your data connectors, which basically has all the data that you brought into the product. And so if you want to add data, you have the file type, adding data, endpoints, backends, database, websites, RSS feeds, and we'll be continuously adding more data integrations over time. And you also have package data. So we work with some data vendors to bring data out of the box for users on a free tier level. And for some, we do deals where it's for the enterprise. And so if there's any data requests that you have, you can click on this button and you can request, and then our team will look into that and prioritize accordingly. With that being said, I'd like to give my words to Michael, and yeah, I think you're gonna like what Michael has to share, and have fun.
Cool, perfect. Thanks, Didier. I'm just quickly going to share my screen and then we can get started. All right, so hi everyone. Not all of you will know me. I'm Michael Struwig. I'm head of AI at OpenBB. I've been here for about a year now, and I've been really excited to kind of lead the stuff I'm going to be showing today about how we think and kind of really from the ground up thought clearly and a little bit differently about what we want an AI integration to look like in terms of software and how that works. And the main reason for doing that is that, it's new technology. Everyone's kind of still trying to figure stuff out. And we have quite a unique approach to how we think about this. So I'm actually an engineer by training. And so as my team, who I believe is actually on the call, will tell you, I often end up drawing on a whiteboard. And so I'm going to do the same thing here just to kind of explain to you why what we have is quite unique. So we basically have, when we started thinking about OpenBB Copilot and what we wanted it to be, we started with the simple idea that everything on the dashboard that was visible, we basically wanted Copilot to have access to it. And this was kind of one of the most important things that we thought about. We want to make sure that whenever you see a widget, if you see a file that you've uploaded, whether you brought it in from an internal connection, whether it's something that you just loaded as an internal widget, we want Copilot to be able to use this in order to answer your queries. And basically, what we said to ourselves is, okay, we're busy designing Terminal Pro. And what we're going to do is we're going to have two kinds of users. We're going to have humans, and we're going to have copilots. And everything a human can do, the copilot must be able to do as well. But where things get really interesting is what Terminal Pro is actually, it's kind of like, it's what you're looking at right now. It's this interface, this layer that allows you to both manipulate and interact with data. And so what Terminal Pro actually is, it's really just this abstraction for this kind of data layer at the back end. And whether this data, is from a data source, whether it's something like a user file that you've uploaded or an API or even, something from the web. The idea is that if we use Terminal Pro as this universal interface to connect to data, no matter where it comes from, you end up with a very interesting paradigm. And the problem like we really had when we started thinking about this is if you think about how traditional LLMs work, you basically have this LLM, like let's say it's ChatGPT, and you bring in your data and your prompt, and then basically you get your answer out. But this answer is kind of inert. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't stick with you really through multiple chats. It's hard to export. It's not a great way of like handling things. And so what we basically said is, okay, what happens if we treat everything like data? Whether it's Copilot's answer, whether it's something a human has provided through a note, whether it's data through this way, and regardless of whether we're outputting something that's structured or unstructured, what if everything is data? Because if it's data, it means we can add it back into this data layer, which, you know, some people might have called this a data lake, but internally we kind of joke around and call this a data zoo. And now everything Copilot produces can be fed back into this kind of cyclical system that just keeps on building up and allowing you to do better and better analysis. And so these two kind of concepts, I want us to keep in mind while I go through and like demo some of the stuff that Copilot can do. So with that being said, let's get started. I'm going to kind of model this demo on something I like to do, which is I'm quite a person who's into like psychology and stuff like that. And one of the things that I often go down rabbit holes with is researching consumer and customer behavior. And this was about electric vehicles. So here's just this transcript that I was busy looking at, and it's BMW's transcript. And what I did is something I tend to do quite often when I'm busy doing an initial investigation, is I'll just add this to Copilot as context. And I'll typically ask something like, you know, what's interesting in here? And now what happens is because we've added this as context, it's made available to Copilot. Copilot can now use this information and it can autonomously decide what it wants to basically do. So here we see basically a very nice, interesting summary of this transcript with all of, you know, the information that's relevant. And when I was busy redoing this investigation, one of the things I was really interested about is electric vehicle growth. So one of the curious psychological things is everyone's currently reporting really good electric vehicle growth. But the question you have to ask yourself isn't whether people are buying EVs. It's whether they go back to a diesel or a gasoline car after having owned an EV. And I kind of wanted to go down this rabbit hole. And so what we can do is we can just search the web for, I don't know, some interesting articles. So let's say, are there any studies on customer satisfaction with regards to EVs? And while this is going, I can talk about something else. So you may have noticed this little thing pop up in the answer. And this is a citation system. So because we treat everything as data as it enters the system and leaves the system and gets transformed, we understand exactly where it came from and what it does. And this is one of the ways we're making sure people can trust Copilot's outputs. It's one of those classic cases where right now it's new technology. We're still trying to figure out how things work. We want to make sure that at every step of the way, you basically have access to what Copilot used in order to produce an answer. Now, in this case, it's relatively simple because we just have one widget. But as things get more complicated, you'll see we always make it easy for you to find what Copilot used to produce an answer and also to find it again on the dashboard. So we searched the web, we got some articles and things like that. But what I'm actually going to do is add a couple of files that I added in, that I downloaded earlier, which had these articles. So let's just resize things here quickly. And I'm quickly just going to upload 3 PDFs. So what we do is we upload all of these, and because, you know, we have this tight integration with AI, we'll give them each a descriptive name. So here we are, here's the names. And now we've essentially pulled this straight into our dashboard and Copilot has access to this. So what I can just do is add them again as context, and I can say, summarize the PDFs. So while this is going on, one of the other things you might have noticed is we don't just have citations, we have these little things that pop up. And what we call these are our reasoning steps. So like Didier mentioned, Copilot is actually quite agentic. It consists of a whole bunch of subsystems that work together in the backend, and it has quite complicated behavior. These subsystems are dedicated to the various kinds of tasks that you typically want to do, whether it's handling unstructured or structured data. And again, as part of our entire system of building trust into this, we let you know exactly what Copilot is doing in every step of the way, every piece of information that it produces, and make sure that you understand how and where it comes from. So what you can see over here is we actually queried a file to produce a summary, and here are the actual summaries that were produced. And this is pretty interesting because you actually see this magic button over here, which says create widget from text. So any kind of output that Copilot produces, well, we can bring that right back into Terminal Pro. So here we have the one summary. I don't know, let's create another one. And again, you see all of these insights are basically the name and the description are generated on the fly. So let's bring all of these in. All right, so we kind of do more than just summarize as well, just show you how powerful the citations basically are. I can say, in any of the attached files, which vehicles were mentioned. And so we can do more than just summarize, right? We can also actually search across these files that have been uploaded. And we can see, okay, over here in this document on page 1, this is the actual text that was used. And this is what was used in order to provide our answer. All right, so that's unstructured data. But we can do more than just handle unstructured data. So what I'm actually going to upload now is some structured data. It's a CSV data set of the various charging records across various locations. So let's just load that in. Wait for it to load. There we go. So just to go over the data set very briefly, we see we have a bunch of user IDs, charger IDs, we have a whole bunch of locations, and we have things like when people started charging, what the kilowatt usage was, how long they charged for, that kind of thing. So let's do a little bit of like analytics, right? Like this data isn't useful the way it is. So let's see what we can do with Copilot. I'm going to do something very simple. Nice place to always start off is, let's say, give me a count of charger sessions per location. And so we don't just have subsystems for unstructured data like PDFs or websites or things like that. We actually have a subsystem that can handle structured data as well. And as always, we show you all of the reasoning steps. So here we kind of get an output, but one of the really valuable things and something we're really impressed with and proud of over here is the actual raw data that gets produced. That kind of gets returned as an artifact to you as part of these reasoning steps. And so you can turn this into another widget. So here, we actually have a breakdown of the number of charging sessions at each location. And we can just, immediately turn this into a plot. Just going to tweak things a little bit slightly to make it a bar plot, which is over here. And if I move this out the way, we can just customize. There we go. But okay, this is interesting, but it's not the most interesting thing in the world. This is something that would have been pretty easy to do analytically. So let's try something else. Give me the count of charger sessions per hour of the day per location. And, if you have some programming experience, this is something you would be able to do. It will just take you a bit of time because you see we've got kind of the start time and the end time. And you've got to do some string processing maybe and figure this out and then do multiple group bys and stuff like that. But I mean, you don't have to if you're just doing some light analytics. Just use Copilot, right? So again, here we can see all of the various reasoning steps. He'll get a brief summary or preview of the information. And again, if you were ever in doubt, we always highlight exactly where the data came from we make it easy to access that data, so you're never lost, you'd never get confused about how things worked or where it came from. But let's take a look at this artifact. All right, so if you may have noticed, this is in tidy format. And while that's great if you're plotting in something like R or Python, this isn't quite right for our plotting system. So what I'm going to do is just add this as context again. And I'm going to say to Copilot, pivot this table so that each location becomes a column. And again, we can see all the steps that Copilot takes. There we are. So now we can see everything's been pivoted out. We can add this in, we can delete the old data because we don't need it anymore. Let me just make this bigger. And there we have a plot, and we can actually see something interesting, like maybe people charge their cars, at 9 o'clock in the morning in public areas, and at night, that's when they kind of start charging them at home at their apartment. And it's kind of powerful to see just how quickly you can get insights by just asking good questions. You don't have to worry about pulling this out and writing some code or figuring out how to manipulate the data. You don't have to do any of that anymore if you're doing analysis. You can just use Copilot. And the best part is it's no magic. You can always find the data that you use. You can always find your way back to how the data was produced. And this is really, really valuable and important. And remember I said we want to make sure that Copilot can kind of have access to everything that you see on the dashboard. That's true, but it can also do something a bit more special. So, Didier spoke about all of these various data connections that we have and, all of these widgets that you can choose and add to your dashboard. Well, it turns out you can ask questions and Copilot will actually be able to search through these data sources and find the correct data sources necessary in order to answer your query. So, for example, I'll just ask something like, in the global news, let's say, is there any talk of EV infrastructure being built? And which manufacturers are involved? And so now what OpenBB Copilot is going to do is actually look across all of the various data sources that it has available to it. So we can see here it's actually accessing data from the OpenBB API. So these are some of the widgets that come out the box. And what it's going to do is it's going to use that to answer your question. So we see that a couple of infrastructure is being built. We see BYD is involved. Tesla is talking about it and things like that. Again, we can break down the reasoning. And because we want to make sure you always know where this data comes from, you can mouse over the citation. You can see that we looked at news maybe just over the last year. And this is an actual data source we can now add to our dashboard. So this is like super powerful. You don't necessarily have to know which data sources you have. You can just basically find it. And we can do this across all of our various data sources. Then the last thing that I basically just want to demo, just have to make sure it's quickly running, is a throwback to our open source heritage. So even though we spent a lot of time on building OpenBB Copilot, and this is, kind of deployed in our infrastructure and does some amazing things, we actually have this amazing button called Add Copilot. And what I've just added now is I actually have a locally running Llama 3.1 8 billion parameter model that is running on my machine. All my data stays right here where it is. The API schema for this is open source and it's published. We actually have examples for how you can bring in your own custom Copilot, whether you want it to be something running locally on your machine or maybe something inside of your organization. And we can do things like add context to it and say, summarize the earnings transcript. Now, I don't have a lot of RAM on this particular machine, especially with Zoom running, so I might stutter a little bit. But what's busy happening right now is my local RAM is being filled up with the weights for this Llama 3.1 model. And we now have a Copilot that is running completely locally on my machine. And this is something we're really forward thinking about. We believe as open source models get better and better, this will become a much more viable solution, especially as they come down in kind of parameter sizes and things like that and grow in capability. And we're really like encouraging people to play around with this. We want this to be this universal interface between data, humans, and AI. So speaking about custom things, this is custom Copilot, but something really powerful and how this all meshes together is going to be custom data sources and custom endpoints and custom APIs. And that's something that James is really excited to talk about and to share. So James, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. I'm still blown away every time I see you guys demo that what you and the team have built in no time, or what seems like no time. So yeah, I'm super excited to share data today. I'm James. I'm the co-founder of OpenBB. It's a pleasure to be talking to you guys today. Thanks for still being here, 40 minutes in. And this is kind of a full circle moment for me because when we started this, well, I should say when I joined the product when it was GameStonk, 3+ years ago, what was I doing? I was incorporating my own data. Didier had this awesome little CLI tool, and I wanted to bring my own data, so I did. And today I am here bringing your own data with you 3.5 years later, and OpenBB company founded later. So all the mushy stuff aside, let's jump into it. When you log into the OpenBB terminal, you'll be prompted to onboard, but your main home screen will be this data connectors. And I'd like to just take a second to highlight that there's these two sections. First is my data. Second is package data. So with the package data, what that is that's just essentially the OpenBB bundle. That is some financial data, economic data to get you started, to get, let you play around, let you see what you can do and accomplish. For an example here, we can go into Benzinga, company news. That's what Michael showed, where you can ask Copilot and it goes behind the scenes. That's available because that's part of the package data. You'll see some data sources are Terminal Pro features. You can reach out to us to discuss that a little bit more. But back to where I'm excited to talk about is my data. So someone in the chat earlier asked, what can I bring? What kind of other data? And I don't have a good answer to that because you can bring whatever you want. In the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to walk through a couple different examples. But as you can see through here, I can upload files, right? Michael uploaded PDFs and CSVs. I'm going to go through some CSVs. An endpoint, what's that? If I go to, maybe you subscribe to a data provider, or maybe you are just looking for an open source, open API, such as the US Treasury. What you can do is I cheated. I actually already had this added. What you can do is you can add the endpoint, and this is just a simple JSON with a key labeled by data. We add this in, and the data key, we need to test. Oops. There we go. All right, the data key is right here. And I select it and I update. And this is now, if I go to a new widget, I called it debt. This is now available, right? This is not data that is provided to us. If you have gone through our onboarding already, this might be a little familiar with you, but you can add this JSON data right to the terminal, and off the bat, you can take advantage of the built-in sharding functionalities. A little off script there, but that was the endpoint. Custom backend, I'm super excited to show the platform in a little bit, but that's an example of a custom backend. I'll also walk through, I'll show you where our repo is that you can add a couple of these. Databases, I'm not touching this today either. More information to come, but this is a super exciting feature, super powerful, where you can connect to either your SQL or Snowflake at the moment. We are working on some other data lake, data warehouse integrations. If there's anything you're interested in, drop us a line. We're trying to learn more about what that usage is. Iframes, this is what Michael showed off with Excalidraw. I can look at the OpenBB docs. If I add this, you get a nice pop-up. Here's, I think someone else asked, how to get going with Copilot. Well, just get into the OpenBB terminal and go, here you go, right? An iframe right in the widget. So let's jump into what we can do. So if anyone comes from a data engineering background, then you are probably familiar with DBT. And if you are familiar with DBT, you are familiar with the Jaffle data shop. I would like to give the disclaimer that I do not know what a Jaffle is, but I believe Michael is from South Africa, and that is a thing they do there. So if anyone's curious what on earth a Jaffle is, ask him, not me. But as you can see, I uploaded data. Actually, I just clicked a couple CSVs, and we get some nice Copilot generated names. These are not what, like, instead of calling a raw customer, now we have customer names. So let's upload this data, and I'll add to a new dashboard. So immediately I have 6 widgets on my dashboard, and let's think about what we want. This order summary data, this contains information about, I'm actually not going to use this widget, so we'll get rid of a couple of these just for demonstration purposes. Right, this has information about ordered at and what the total is. So something we might want to ask is who are our top customers? Who spent? Wow, who spent the most total money? Right. So now what's going to happen, as Michael showed, is I ask Copilot a question and knows that this context is here. Underneath the hood, it's going to go load that somewhere. It's going to do some SQL. It knows, hey, I need to, group by ID, and it tells us, all right, we got 260,000 units for this guy. All right, that's cool. I don't know who this is. Maybe we want to put the guy's name on a wall for most spend or something. So we can go, what is the name of the highest spending person? I don't know. Michael said, you can ask it good questions. I'm probably going to be giving you a demo of asking it bad questions. But either way, I've loaded in this data. And so it's gone from here, which generates this customer ID. And here it tells us that this is David Leonard. I did not provide any semantic layer. I did not tell Copilot what the column IDs were, but behind the scenes, it understood that, hey, I have this order summary. I can find, I can find who had the highest total. And now, given that both tables have this ID, we just join, and now we have a simple lookup. So this is just a super simple example of the power of Copilot on your own data. I've been talking for 5 minutes now. I uploaded data a minute ago, and now I already know who gets the plaque for highest spender of the month. So that's one example, right? Michael also highlighted, can we summarize the total spend per day? That's a pretty common question. So what it's going to do is exactly what Michael showed. It knows there's this ordered at. It's going to go through, group by, and aggregate, and from that it'll generate the artifact. Let's see if I can kind of cheat, and yep, I will now add it to my dashboard, and we get all the built-in plotting capabilities. Here we can see people spend more on the weekends, and just to kind of actually, let's go back to here, because if we create a chart, actually we can okay, or not. but yeah, you can generate the chart and then you can go use forecasting and whatnot. So there's just a super simple example. I've brought in data, I brought in my own custom data that can be whatever it is. It doesn't have to be financial. It doesn't have to be sales data. It can be anything that you're using, for your job, for your personal. Someone in attendance and I like to play around with sports data so that we can lose bets every weekend, whatever it is. So with that, I'm going to, I hinted that I'm going to talk about this OpenBB platform backend. So fantastic work on our team. If anyone's familiar with the open source platform, the OpenBB platform, that's kind of where our main repo is. That's where our data aggregation, data standardization occurs. That's where you can have a Python package or launch an API. What the team has done is turn this into a 2-click installer. So from the website, or from the hub, my.openbb.co, you can download your platform installer. Once you have that, you can launch the platform API that's there. This is what I've done here. This will spin up something that can be added. So if I go to custom backend, we'll call this the platform. And as we can see here, it is on HTTP 127 6900. Nice. Oh, come on. And boom, right with doing no work, 370 widgets. So disclaimer, not all of these are free data sources. Some of them do require API keys. That's where you can get your personal access token from the hub and enter your keys there. Some keys are free, like the Fred API. Others, like in Trinio, do require you to pay. So that's there. I now have 370 widgets. What can I do? Well, the way that Copilot was designed, as Michael showed you earlier, is we have access to everything on the back end. So I am going to, first, I'm going to make this, let's make this full screen. And let's ask Copilot, I'm going to ask it to get a yield curve, but I'm not only going to ask it for a yield curve, I'm going to ask it for 3 yield curves, one from, I guess, the most recent day, one from a year ago, and one from 12 years ago. So if you did this without having the custom backend, it would tell you, hey, sorry, I don't know what, I don't understand. I don't have access to this data. However, be nice to it. What it's going to do now that I've added the OpenBB platform is the way that we designed that is it's fed in and it knows that these functions exist. Okay. Apparently it doesn't want to make a single table for me. But basically what it's doing is it knows that this function exists, right? If I look at the citation, right, what this is doing is it knows that it's using the OpenBB platform, and this is one of the query parameters. So if you were to use this in Python, you would have this endpoint, US yield curve, and you'd enter date equals this. So it's able to do this. And then given that this is already in, are any of these yield curves inverted, right? We don't fine tune or train any specific models. This is just using OpenAI behind the scenes, and it has the data loaded. So now that it knows to use, or it's just using common knowledge to show that in this case, yield curves inverted. Why? Because longer term rates are higher than the short term rates. This is just an example. Someone asked about earnings calendar. There's an earnings calendar in the platform, so you could ask that, and it would pull it up if you have the right keys. So that's exciting, and we can. I can go through one final demo of what's available. It's 13F season. September just ended, so if I wanted to see what they're up to, we'll pick Michael Burry, big fan of The Big Short. So I know that the input here is going to be what the company name is. And so I'll just kind of do this. And if we look on the side, we can see that that this is actually being called by the API. This will, as we can see, the butterflies loading. We can see here I get a sick, and if I come in here, I can now add 13F. And yes, I'm cheating because I know all of this. You could ask Copilot as well, since it now has all that information. But from here, I can now look at, if we want to look at a nice bar chart. Scroll back, can actually go back here and make a nice pie chart. This is all platform data. This is all, I don't have any external keys. This is all public data. And here we go. Right off the bat, you can see what something like that looks like. With that said, I've only touched the tip of the iceberg of what's available. You can bring in any data you want with our native connectors, Snowflake, SQL, any data you have there, part of your data pipeline can easily be added into Terminal Pro and visualized, added to Copilot. Thank you for listening to me. I'm super excited. I really hope you guys give it a test out. Let us know how it goes for you. But I think I'll pass it back to Didier, start wrapping it up.
Thank you, James. Thank you for the demo. Thank you, Michael, as well for the demo. Yeah, I hope all of you enjoyed the demo time. I hope you understand like what we were trying to build here and how powerful the product is. I really hope that came across. There's a lot more that you can do with it. Over the next few weeks, we're gonna start working on more workflows. So we have an earnings transcript workflow that is already ready, and we are creating a few more of how you can use OpenBB end to end from data from the product, or if you need to bring data into the product, how you can do so. And so there's gonna be more of that going forward. Once again, thank you everyone for attending this webinar. I hope you had fun. Feel free to show your support on socials. Feel free to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm really active there. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to have a chat. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for taking the time once again. Ask me anything session on Friday if you're interested, and then you'll get an email with the recording of this session and also the main questions that were asked in the form of like easy to be digested form will be shared on email. And I think that's it. I'll see you around. Thank you, everyone.